And it was a cafeteria filled with thousands of kids. And this one particular kid would start with like little cracker bits, and then it like ended as full apples. He would throttle at me in the middle of the lunchroom to the point where I was eating my lunch in the bathroom stall, like, you know, you see on the movies. So all of these things obviously shaped who I was. And now as a mom and a woman, I didn't really understand the magnitude of why I wanted to be a prosecutor, to be the voice for those who perhaps weren't confident enough to give that voice to themselves. But now obviously it's like very clear, because even as a mother, I want to be able to give my kids that voice, but also be the voice for others that they see wrongdoings being done. So I had weight loss surgery at 17. I was the 24th adolescent in the country to have the gastric lap band. I lost a lot of weight and had a very big following. And at that time, there was a lot of talk about bullying. If you recall, there was one high school or college student in the US who unfortunately took his own life off of a bridge. There was like begging from the media for people to talk. But at that time, social media was not prevalent. Maybe MySpace was around during that time, I don't remember, but it certainly was not. And so I had my surgery, and People magazine followed my story. They did a very large spread on my story, and then it picked up from a few other television shows, Good Morning America, Today Show, The Neil Cavuto Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Resilient Entrepreneurs. Today's conversation is with Amanda Barron Frank. She's a former prosecutor and has worked in district attorney offices in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. At the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office, she supervised 100 attorneys in the prosecution of misdemeanor and felony offenses, and she's tried countless jury trials. Amanda established an anti-bullying program in Kings County and has spurred educational outreach in New York City schools. She's an accomplished lecturer who frequently shares her insights on legal ethics, and she also lectures on managing addictions and addressing work-related stress and substance abuse. We will ask how she's balancing her demanding role as now the managing partner of her law firm and her responsibilities as a mum of young kids and a loving wife. So let's talk about work-life balance with Amanda. Is there such a thing? This, folks, is Resilient Entrepreneurs. It's the podcast where we speak with business owners from all around the world and from all walks of life, in the hope that something you hear will leave your business a little richer. Our business, 2-for-1 Branding, supports new entrepreneurs as they launch their business, and we offer you the tools you need to succeed, which is exactly why we invite the experienced, successful entrepreneurs like Amanda to share their wisdom with you on this podcast. Now, if you love hearing their stories and if you find it useful, we have one thing to ask of you. It will really help us to get this on the playlists of so many more people if you subscribe on whichever channel you're listening or watching on now. Of course, you'll be notified of the next great episode, and you'll be sharing the love to someone else to discover resilient entrepreneurs. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited for this conversation. And I'd love to start with your backstory, Amanda. Can you tell us what your childhood was like? Where did you grow up, and what were your parents like? Tell us a bit of that story.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in New Jersey, currently live on Long Island in New York, which is not so different than New Jersey. It's all sort of the same. Although I guess it's who you ask, but for me, the same. I grew up in a family. I have a brother, mom and dad. My dad is a lawyer. It was a very entrepreneur-like family. My dad, while being a lawyer, always had other businesses. One year he wanted to own a construction company, so he owned that. And then we owned a memorabilia gallery, which is where I worked every weekend and after school. So just regular family, really did like school, was always very into school, and followed my dad's footsteps, became a lawyer, went to law school, met my husband in law school. And then I took a contract in Miami to be a prosecutor there, came back to New York, and I was a general counsel for a 7-state ambulatory surgical center for plastic surgery, and then went to a in-house counsel position for an SBA bank lender. And then I joined my husband, who is my partner in the firm, and we opened up the firm, and we're approaching 6 years. And then a year ago, we purchased from other attorneys, actually, a process serving company. So we run that as well together.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. So life sounds like it was pretty rosy as a kid, but we also know that there was another side to your childhood that was pretty ugly. Can we talk a little bit about that, the experience that you had being bullied?
Sure. So I was an overweight kid. Everybody has their scars. As the nature, I guess, of being a kid, which is, as a mom, difficult for me because you just try to protect them at all costs. And unfortunately, those are just some things you can't. In my mind, the only thing I could do as a mom is give them the confidence, but real confidence, not fake confidence, real confidence to withstand whatever comes their way. But to my parents' credit, I was a decently confident kid, just always very kind, but was bullied for my weight. In first grade, all the other kids were getting, their styrofoam lunches, and I was being given Jenny Craig meals. So it dated back. Always there was comments. We went away on vacation, and one kid stood up and said, "Where did you go? To go see the rest of the beluga whales, the rest of your family?" In high school, I went to private school all my life, and I said, "No, I'm going to public school now. It'll be different." And it was a much bigger school, and it was a cafeteria filled with thousands of kids. And this one particular kid would start with little cracker bits, and then it ended as full apples. He would throttle at me in the middle of the lunchroom, to the point where I was eating my lunch in the bathroom stall, you see on the movies. So all of these things obviously shaped who I was. And now, as a mom and a woman, I didn't really understand the magnitude of why I wanted to be a prosecutor, to be the voice for those who perhaps weren't confident enough to give that voice to themselves. But now, obviously, it's very clear, because even as a mother, I want to be able to give my kids that voice, but also be the voice for others that they see wrongdoings being done. So I had weight loss surgery at 17. I was the 24th adolescent in the country to have the gastric lap band. I lost a lot of weight and had a very big following. And at that time, there was a lot of talk about bullying. If you recall, there was one high school or college student in the US who unfortunately took his own life off of a bridge. There was begging from the media for people to talk. But at that time, social media was not prevalent. Maybe MySpace was around during that time. I don't remember, but it certainly was not. And so I had my surgery, and People magazine followed my story. They did a very large spread on my story. And then it picked up from a few other television shows, Good Morning America, Today's Show, The Neil Cavuto Show. And then I went to college, and I wrote my personal statement to law school about the way I was bullied, and how it's just, for whatever it's worth, no matter how old I get, no matter how confident I get, those scars are never erased. It's just for everybody. Weight, glasses, whatever. And so I wrote my personal statement, and at the time, I believe I was volunteering at the Kings County DA's office, which is Brooklyn, New York. And the DA at the time, may his soul rest in peace, Charles Joe Hines, read my personal statement and called me to his office and said, "You need to do something with this. These words are protruding off of this page. I feel everything you've gone through." And so I said, "Okay, what?" And this is the DA of Brooklyn, the guy. So I'm what am I supposed to do? So we started a unit in Brooklyn. It was an anti-bullying unit. It was me, who was this little college kid aspiring to go to law school, just begging to be around it all. A very seasoned DA. I believe he was in the homicide unit at that time. And him and I, while while I can't remember if I was in college or law school at that time, but either way, I remember on the days that I didn't have class, I would go with him to to schools all around Brooklyn. And we had this skit, if you will. And he would say one of us was bullied very badly for their weight. And then like the kids have to say like who, and he was, an older, like heftier gentleman, or so they would all would say him. And I'll never forget one kid. We were in a very bad area of Brooklyn. And one kid stood up and said, "That's not right. She looks like Kim Kardashian. It's not her." He was like so upset that it was me after they told him. But it was very beneficial because we were able to share my story. But it's interesting how I said like these scars are from all walks of life, because in this particular school, there was parents who were gang members and their kids didn't like other kids because their parents simply told them not to like them. And so you had bullying based on like very real, serious consequences to that, which started at such a young age and obviously in the home. And so what our job there was to basically said, obviously bullying is wrong. We can tell a kid that until they're blue in the face, but we also told them what the consequences are from a legal perspective, what can be done, and how you will literally ruin your whole life if you treat somebody that way. And just really got down to the minutia from a moral perspective, from a legal perspective too. So that's what we did. It was amazing. It was probably one of the most rewarding things that I was able to do. Unfortunately, it had to stop because in law school and life, but it was phenomenal. And that was the work that we were able to do in that time.
Amanda, tell us how much impact you believe that program had.
I hope a lot. It's interesting. I really have the desire to start something similar again. It's just always in the back of my mind. I'm sure both of you, like the most weirdest little thing you'll think back on your childhood in your life, which will like be an example of something now as an adult. And I'm hoping it's that anytime someone makes a decision that could hurt somebody. I don't know, but I sure hope.
I'd like to think that perhaps it reduced crime in the area.
I sure hope so.
Because if people have less scars as children, then they're more self-regulated and they're less likely perhaps to perpetrate crime as an adult.
Yes. And I have two very small children, 1 and 3. And even at this age, in my opinion, it's not about, oh, you're so beautiful, oh, you're so smart, oh, you're so this. It's really giving them the tools to navigate all of these scenarios, but in a way that they can communicate their feelings and advocate for themselves. And it does start small. My daughter, if she wants a snack, well, you have to eat your lunch and your dinner before you get your snack. But I want it, but that's not an answer. Is there a reason why you want it? It's those little things that I believe are building blocks to get you to an adult that is compassionate and kind and understanding. That's what I hope for, at least for my kids.
Well, just before we move on from that subject, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, and just, others who are hearing it, that in itself may have really helped their day or helped their life. And I'm really sorry that you had to go through that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And I sure do too. Everyone, you're not alone. And if I just could add one thing. So you had mentioned that I do ethics. I'm a lecturer for ethics, but the company that I do the lecturing for in New York had asked me to do one on substance abuse. And I've never done a drug in my life. I don't drink. I just really would rather eat my calories, to be very honest with you. Obviously, had weight loss surgery. But I did the research for it. And in my CLE, I started off by saying, I can't personally relate to this, but this is the statistics and it's alarming. And all of this comes from the mental anguish of the profession and the fact that people feel alone and they're taking on the burdens and the problems of other people and not knowing how to compartmentalize and deal with it. I filmed that, I would say maybe 4 years ago. The amount of like older retired attorneys that have still reached out to me saying, thank you. I knew this person. I knew that person. I don't feel alone anymore. I wish this attorney that I used to know saw this, but unfortunately he's lost to alcoholism or whatever the case may be. It is such a profound problem all across the world. It's like everybody is so worried about their social media and the minutia of what this one's wearing and what that one's wearing. It's so much deeper than that. And I just bringing it to that, I just bullying as a kid, but it is a problem that translates as an adult. And those substances to some people is what they use to cope that if they're not armed with the proper way to handle life moving forward. Just to tie that together, that is generally how I feel in the work that I've done.
I think it all comes down to mental health, doesn't it? Like there's such a challenge of everyone dealing with mental health issues and not getting the help. I heard somebody say the other day, like everyone should be assigned like a therapist along with like a GP, right? Like for your life. Like it should be as normal to go get a mental health checkup as a physical health checkup because we all struggle with something. And it does lead us down paths like alcoholism and stuff that we can't get out of because they're escapism, right? Addiction is an escapism. So we are escaping from things, but instead of facing it. But what I love about what your story talks about is the action part. Like you took action and did something that had profound impact. That's so healing for you. I can tell, even just the way you talk about it, like how much that affected you. It helped your mental health so that you could be positive and then be a good role model for your kids. We got to talk more about mental health.
And even as a mom, I have created such a wonderful group of friends built and predicated on realness. Just being who I am. I'm not afraid to say it. And you really do realize then you like peel the onion and you realize like all of us are walking high functioning, anxiety ridden women, right? Like, or just
People.
Right. Exactly. Just like waiting to the next to-do list or like check mark in their heads. It's those people that really miss out when they've like trying to create this facade of just either perfectionism or wealth or whatever they want to do. They're missing out on it because the real relationships for me that I have built now as an adult has really healed that little girl in me that was just like constantly put in the corner, right? So it's a disservice to the people who are trying to do something be someone other than who they are.
Yeah, you brought up a good point there with social media. And we actually had a quick chat before we even press record today about social media and the effect that it can have. And I was saying how I've been feeling very low lately and social media has definitely been pulling me in that direction. And you said you've taken a break from social media, right? I think we need to sometimes just take that break.
It's wonderful. It's one of those buses that I wish kind of would just stop for a little bit, but I'm not sure we'll ever see that. And so I think it's obviously important to just stop it yourself if you can. Obviously, some professions, it's just impossible because it's the nature of your profession. But for me, I stopped on December 31st and it has been wonderful. I can't say I'm never not going back, but for right now, I'm very happy not being on.
I'm really intrigued. I stopped social media. What does that even mean? Tell us what you did.
I'm still on LinkedIn, if that counts as social media. I'm not quite sure, but LinkedIn is still on, obviously, for professional reasons, but Instagram is off, Facebook is off. And
so you just don't check it or you canceled your account?
Yeah, I deleted the app from my phone. So it's impossible to like just get on. I'd have to log on. And for me to ever remember my passwords is a full-time job. So, it really does the job.
I gotcha. I mean, I was just thinking if our listeners, you were thinking, wow, that's a great idea. Yeah. Just delete the app, eh?
Just delete the app and you won't have that desire to just click.
Yeah. Click and scroll. How has that impacted your work-life balance?
I think I'm much more present of a mom. I maybe am shopping a little bit more, but
it's not online.
Yeah, exactly. Online, like scrolling. But I think as a mom, I'm definitely more present. And I always try to be, right? Like with my kids, do silly, goofy things and color and whatever. But I definitely think it has helped with being present in work too, obviously. just all around much more here.
What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on work-life balance, Amanda? I mean, you're a busy attorney in New York City or in New York, and you've got 2 young kids. Is there such a thing?
Oof, that's a loaded question. I'd rather talk about being bullied.
Well, I noticed that you say that you make every attempt to always pick up your little girl from school. Is that right?
I do, yes. My daughter's in nursery, and her pickup is at 12, and I make sure that I'm there regardless of what I'm doing. I straddle my days to make sure I'm there. And my husband, the same. My husband drops off every morning and I pick up every day. He is a very involved dad. He's a very hard worker and has a lot of cases, but everybody has the likes and dislikes of their parents. And so we both try to resolve whatever we felt we lacked as kids in our children. And so we are very involved parents and very there for them. So for me, work-life balance, a lot of people just say it, but my kids and my family come first. Obviously, you need money to survive, and our clients never feel that. But in my mind, that's priority one. And then, everything else comes after. It's really every day of my life is a jigsaw puzzle. Speak to this client, grab the food shopping, pick up my daughter, take this call. It's like survival.
Especially in the early years, Amanda, especially in the early years, it is. And when you're not really getting enough sleep on top of it. Do you do any specific, for yourself, any specific self-care just to kind of help you stay grounded?
Yeah, so I actually love and swear I am not a doctor. I'm not recommending this to anybody. Talk to your doctors, right? The legal disclaimers. But I take GABA, the vitamin GABA and magnesium every day. And it has just been a game changer for me mentally. It just regulates me. It allows me to sleep. It really has changed my life because my brain just doesn't turn off. So it allows it to turn off. And it's just vitamins, just, natural vitamins. But that's the thing. I do acupuncture. That helps me a lot. And just on the weekends, I try to no work. It's just my children, undivided attention. I cut off usually my kids will go to bed at 6:30ish. So 5 o'clock to 6:30 is their time, no matter what. So wherever I can to make it where I'm just not doing the task, but I really am present in doing it. That's, I guess.
And you're now partner of a law firm. How long have you been working for yourself as an entrepreneur?
It will be 6 years in July.
Yeah. And in those 6 years, or actually take us back to when it first started. So did you form the law firm yourself with another partner, or did you join once it was formed?
Yeah, so my husband, Tommy, he started it first. I was working as in-house counsel for an SBA lender, and which, by the way, the acronym is Small Business Act, so the United States.
Right, you were overseeing loans to small businesses?
Yes, so
Okay.
that's what I was doing at that time. And then the firm really just took off and grew, and it got to a point where it was either he had hired an attorney or I came on. And so I came on, and it was great, very scary for me because my bread and butter, if you will, was criminal law. And I knew I wanted to have a baby and didn't want to have that necessarily in my life at the time of having a baby. Just being in court and trying cases late at night and being just surrounded by that. So I started, after my time as in-house counsel, where I touched pretty much everything: employment, transactional, real estate. I love real estate. And so that's where my primary focus is in the firm: real estate transactions, foreclosures, SBA lending, things of that nature. So it was a little scary for me because I was basically picking up a whole new practice area and not a W-2 employee anymore, where a paycheck is being fed to me. It's survival, which was really hard. My husband and I paid for our wedding ourselves, and we started the firm while we were about to get married. So it was a very difficult time. We always talk about the fact we had this little dining room table that shook every time you wrote, and we were like, oh my God, how are we going to make this? but thank God we persevered, and we've never looked back. And like we always say, obviously everybody has their stories about their spouse, but for us, we couldn't imagine being partners with anyone else because we trust each other with all that we have. So it's not where we're afraid the other one is doing something that could hurt our livelihood, because our livelihood is what. So yeah, that's been a joy. And it's brought us, we've always been one since the day we started dating. So many people tried talking us out of it. Like, what are you, crazy? You're going to live together, work together, raise a family together. And we really didn't think twice about it. We just went ahead. And truthfully, we couldn't imagine doing it any other way now. Like, we're among our friends and our colleagues, we are the youngest or close to the youngest. And we treat everybody with respect. We give our clients all that they need. We just try to do everything morally and ethically correct and do the best we could do. And it's, thank God, working out for us.
No, it's amazing. You mentioned age, so I'm going to ask, how old are you guys?
I'm 34 and my husband is 36.
Yeah, beautiful. What a long life you've lived in a few short years, right?
And you don't know the half of it.
Oh, no, don't tempt us. We'll ask. Oh, it's beautiful. So being an entrepreneur, was there ever a time in that 6 years where you thought, I'm just going to go back to getting a job? Got to quit this entrepreneurship thing?
I guess the times I think back on it is like when you get scared and you just want that comfort. Like, if God forbid something ever happened to, God forbid 1,000 times, my husband or whatever, like, what would you do? Because I think we all think that way, right? You have to. You would be silly not to plan the course for worst case scenario, at least in my mind. So it's those times that I think, and then I say to myself, well, the knowledge is power. And so the more law I know and the more experience that I have, the better equipped I am to continue what we've built together. So yeah, I mean, to a degree, but reality sets in and I really like my own schedule.
Yeah, that's it. We wanted to ask you what's your favorite thing about working for yourself?
Oh, 100% that. I really could not imagine having small children and working for someone. I really give so much credit to men and women, but women especially, who have to leave their kids early in the morning, come home, get to see them for an hour. And then, I mean, I am so involved, almost too much, in my kids' lives. And that is the way that I want it to be. And so I really do commend anybody who has to do it that way and is doing it that way, because that is by far my favorite part.
Yeah, it's my favorite part too. I absolutely relate to that. And I've got a teenager now, and it's even more important when you have a teenager, because it's shocking how much they need you. You don't think so, right? You think the early years is when they need you, but oh boy, those teenage years, as we talked about earlier, it's the psychological need that changes so much as kids get older. And you being there, I think, as a parent is going to be profoundly impactful for them. And it's our responsibility to raise the next generation of good human beings. So that's what we've got to do. So I'd like to know, what does success look like to you? How would you define success in your life?
My husband and I talk about this a lot. I hope this doesn't sound cliche in any way, but really for me, it's that my kids felt loved and that I was truly there, and that those who've known me speak only with kindness, that I've treated them kindness and was good to them. Because at the end of the day, you can't take money with you, right? Like, yes, of course you need money to live. But I have grown up in areas and have seen people where the wealthiest of people have the littlest of things. As a little girl, as an adult, I very much believe in that. So for me, it's just the way those that know me view me and have that lasting feeling of how I've made them feel, and that my kids always felt loved and, felt appreciated by me. That to me is success.
Yeah, I love that. And, no one on their deathbed has wished they spent more time at work or made that more money, or, they wish they had had more time with their family and, had more experiences. And yeah, absolutely.
So what advice do you give to people who feel, because we're just going to wrap back around to the earlier part of the conversation, people who feel bullied, let's say in the workplace or by clients or by any adult to adult kind of interaction?
Yeah. Well, husband is better suited for this question because I'm the hothead. But,
My people will talk to your people.
exactly right. Exactly right. But he really is the person that has leveled me for those things to sort of get what you need or get what you want out of the situation, is really just lay it on the table. And in negotiations, obviously, right, as a lawyer, we negotiate all the time. In New York, we have this reputation of being like a bull, the my cousin Vinnies of the world and whatever. And that is how I grew up learning and understanding how to effectuate what you want and essentially be successful in your convictions. But my husband has been the one to prove otherwise for me. And so I guess getting back to your question would be is to just lay it out on the table, right? You're not taken. Nobody is taking you for a loop. But if you're honest and you're upfront, even going back to the friend thing, it all sort of correlates, right? Is just being very candid. Hey, listen, this is my bottom line number. This is what I could do. And this is why. Who's going to fight you on that, right? Like maybe somebody will, right? Somebody who hasn't figured it out yet. But for the most part, you've sort of like stopped that person in their tracks. And now instead of like with gloves on, they're completely disarmed. And now you could have a real conversation and you can really get to where you need to be. Maybe you give a little, the other gives a little. So really, in my advice, I guess, would be to just be real. Don't pretend to be anybody you are. Don't go into the game trying to play chess, because ultimately you want to get to one place, and if you lay it out on the table, you get rid of all the BS and you are where you need to be. For the most part, there are people and there are people, so it just matters. But for me, I used to be that hothead where I want to yell at everybody, and my husband will always say, with my emails or whatever, take an hour, just take an hour. And then at the end, I'm like, okay, you're right. So instead of you're an a-hole, I'm going to say, now that was not very nice. So,
Translation, yeah, the corporate translation.
But it sounds very simplistic, but I really do believe that gets you farther.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Authenticity and realism is so important. What do you think, in your opinion and your experience, causes someone to become a bully? Like, where do the bullies come from?
I obviously am not a psychiatrist and really would love to see the literature on this, but I really do think it is from when you're a child and how your parents treat you. Because as an adult, the scars from your parents are just good and bad, right? I shouldn't say scars, like the wholesomeness of your families as well carry through. And really, there is no person in this world that can either duplicate it, give it, or fix a void for those two people in your life. It just isn't. So I think maybe some of it is the way you're born, but a good portion of it is promulgated by how your parents made you feel and were there for you. And that getting back as to why I am the way I am with my children. So
Yeah.
that's what I think, but I'm not an expert, so I don't know.
I reckon you might be a bit of an expert on this, actually. Maybe not scientifically or medically, but experientially.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've lived it. So let's say top 3 things, advice that you would give to someone starting out in business. Let's say they're young and they have a dream and they're going for it.
Our firm handles a lot of commercial litigation, bankruptcy, foreclosure, real estate. And a big part of our business, especially during COVID and post-COVID, was business restructures throughout the pandemic. And specifically, one gentleman comes to mind who was part of a very, very big franchise, and he was a young guy who really wanted to get in the ring and own his business. And he got involved with some guys who sort of took advantage of him and his innocence. And now they went into a major, major litigation. And obviously, I'm sure he wishes he never did that, or he looked into things better, or he wasn't so blinded maybe by the dreams. And so as lawyers, that's our job, is to basically pop everyone's balloons and like show them what reality is, right? Like, yeah, this is great. You may love this role, you may love this business, but all of this comes with it. So just be cognizant of that. And so I think number one with that story is that just really be careful who you get into business with, who, your business plans with, who your advisors are. That goes to business partners or spouses as well, right? Because I've had a lot of clients who they've hurt each other financially, business ways, and you say, how could you do that? I'm married to you. I had your children, so the coin flips both ways. So that's one, I think, and primary. Two would be very diligent in the ethics behind whatever it is you do. I am like a stickler with that. Any realtors who refer me, or people who refer me, they always laugh because I just am very much by the book. You're going to be protected. It's by the book, but I won't play games in any way. So I always like to go into everything knowing what I can and cannot do. And if there's a gray area, then I won't even go near there. And so I think that's to be said for anybody. And if you just feel like a fish out of water, then there's lawyers, advisors, people that you can get to help facilitate that. And number three, I talked about it and I gave sort of like a vague response to it, but it's really just have that work-life balance, because you could go into loving what you do and then hate it very, very shortly after, because you just didn't value your own personal well-being. And so I really just think that that's incredibly important, whatever that is for you. It could look different for everybody, but I would say would be the three most pertinent advices I would give.
Yeah, those are amazing. Absolutely great advice to anyone listening from a lawyer, from a great perspective as a mom who is balancing all of it as best she can, because gosh knows we're all just doing the best we can. So Amanda, I've got one final question for you. Of course, we are the Resilient Entrepreneurs Podcast, so I have to ask you, what in your opinion makes one become resilient? What does it take?
Well, I think we certainly talked a lot about the ways to overcome certain hardships throughout our time together. And in my opinion, it really is just digging deep into whatever that hardship is, not being afraid of it, hit it head on, evaluate the pros, the cons, what you could do better, what you could do the same next time, who you could have on your team, whatever that looks like for you, but really not avoiding it and really just looking at it head on and hit it all angles. So you could either do better the next time, or do the same if you did it great.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's about taking action. And I think that's what you have said over and over again today, is about when you're up against anything, it's about taking action. And it's about staying true to your values, staying true to your ethics, who you are, and going forward and trying to make a good impact in the world. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about. Most of us go into this with an idea, with a problem we see in the world that needs to be fixed. So we build something to fix that problem. Maybe it's a problem we had or something we see around people we love. But it's generally that mindset that we go into the business with. And, staying true to you and moving forward, taking action, never staying stuck. Getting help, getting mental health checkups, all of this can only contribute to us being better as a society, and certainly as business owners, as we all fumble our way forward in this journey of entrepreneurship. So thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you for being here.
Thank you both so much, and thank you for all you do for all entrepreneurs and giving everybody a safe space to hear the trials and tribulations of life and entrepreneurship.
Yes, I love that. Safe space. That's what we aim to create. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Resilient Entrepreneurs. We hope you enjoyed hearing from our amazing guest and learned something new about resilience and entrepreneurship.
Remember, resilience isn't just a trait, it's a skill that can be learned and developed. And if you want to stay connected with us and hear more inspiring stories, be sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on social media.
And if you know somebody who's a resilient entrepreneur and would be a great guest on our show, we want to hear from you. Please reach out.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Resilient Entrepreneurs.